Hello, I'm Matthew Jarron, Museum Curator at the University of Dundee and organiser of the Public Art Dundee project, and welcome to the latest in my ongoing series of virtual public art walks. And today we're back in the Hilltown for part 2, so we're picking up exactly where we left off, here by the Hilltown Clock, and we're going to start off by just heading up Strathmartin Road, just as quick as we can. Now we're stopping here at Tesco's, which may not look like much now, but before this was a Tesco's, the building started life as Safeway's, and Safeway, big American supermarket chain who first came to Dundee 1973, and they initially opened 2 branches, one in Broughty Ferry and this one here, and the architects who designed the building, Gavin Pattison and Sons, employed Glasgow-based artist Charles Anderson to create this extraordinary kind of Mexican-style relief mural over the central tower. Absolutely amazing piece of work. And I think the shop opened in 75, and at that time there was really nothing else like this in Dundee, but interestingly it does look quite like the kind of wall murals that David Harding was creating as in his role as town artist in Glenrothes, for example. So there were definitely other things like this happening elsewhere in Scotland, and indeed Anderson himself did various other similar murals elsewhere. Interestingly, Anderson also designed the Nursery Clock in the Wellgate, so you can still see something of his work in Dundee, although obviously a very different kind of thing. So sadly, this all disappeared when Tesco's took over, or indeed it may have done so sooner, I'm not actually entirely sure. Given that the central tower is obviously still here, I suppose there is a possibility that they've just covered the mural over, but I don't know, I suspect it's probably long gone. Okay, let's carry on up the road. Okay, so here we are at one of the great landmarks of this area, the wonderful Coldside Library, designed by the city architect James Thomson, built in 1908. And it has some rather nice carving on the front there. This little tympanum and the pediment, probably by the Glasgow sculptor Albert Hodge. We certainly know that he did many of the other carvings on the other Carnegie Libraries in Dundee, so there's a fairly good chance that he did this one as well. And it's worth also pointing out that just as you go in the door here, there's a couple of nice little bronze tablets. One of Andrew Carnegie himself, who provided the money to build the library, and one for Charles Barry, at that time ex-Provost Barry, who gifted the land on which the library was built. And they were designed by James Thomson and made by W. Richardson and Company, and were installed in time for the opening of the library in 1908. Okay, let's just head down here. Now, it won't let us do this on Google Streetview, but we want to just head down this little lane here, which brings us down here to the DPM Park, the site of the old Dundee Pasteurised Milk Company, which is kind of an unofficial park, but it has also become a legal graffiti wall. And in fact, it is claimed to be the longest legal graffiti wall in Scotland. And you can see some of the very nice pieces here. And so there's always something different to see on here. This is how it looked in 2018. It's also home to, one of the homes of the annual Dundee Graffiti Jam, which is the longest running event of its kind in Scotland, organised by Adam Milroy every year. And here we are just outside the park, and we'll just head down this way. Actually, we have a different selection from this view because this was recorded in 2014. Nice field of poppies there. Okay, so now we're going to head back out the park here. Right, and we just come on to Mains Road here. Now, we're just at the back of a pub called The Barrels, and nothing exciting to see when this was recorded in 2014, but it's now been completely transformed, and I'll cut to some photos to show you that. So this is one of the places that was used last year for the Dundee Graffiti Jam 2019, and various different artists decorated this with a theme of strawberries. Trench, Ross McRae, Matt Slow and various others, and it all looks very splendid. Right, we'll just head back down to the main road again. Now, again, nothing to see on Google Streetview, but this is another wall that was transformed thanks to the Graffiti Jam last year, and this is now an absolutely stunning mural which was created by two graffiti artists, Gazmak and Sapien, on the back of Leslie's Sandwich shop. So it's obviously playing on the idea of Urwali normally sitting on his bucket, but here obviously covering his head, really highlighting issues of mental health in children, and it incorporates lyrics of a song called The Message by Grandmaster Flash about the stress of living in inner city poverty. Don't push me as I'm close to the edge, I think I'm about to lose my head. It's a really powerful piece, and it's proved to be extremely popular. Right, heading down Thistle Street. So this is the entrance to the old Bowbridge Jute Works, and some very splendid gates here, but also you'll notice this rather nice little panel of a man and a camel. And the reason that slightly odd symbol is there is that it's a kind of reminder of a much larger sculpture that used to be on top of the older gates that were here, and which was erected in 1885. And the reason for this being that the mill was owned by the Grimmond family, and a camel was apparently part of their coat of arms. And so this huge, great sculpture once stood on top of these gates and was, one of the best known symbols of the local area. But unfortunately, as of course, the needs of industry changed, they needed to have larger lorries coming into the jute works, and they just wouldn't fit through the gates. So unfortunately, they had to basically get rid of that. They lost the large camel and instead replaced it with this smaller little bronze plaque, just as a reminder of the camel that once was here. And there are various different stories about where this camel has ended up, so we're not entirely sure what's happened to the original. Now, it's not going to let me drive in there, but let me just zoom in and you'll see a nice little, quite a fun little mural on this nursery here, little Einsteins, with all these little insects marching along. I don't know who did that, unfortunately, but it's rather sweet. Now, we won't be able to go up here, but just up this wee lane we get to the back of Dens Road Primary School. And in 2018 a new mural was created in the school playground by the artist Paco Graf, working with some of the school pupils. So I'll just show you a picture of that here. So I just want to show you these rather wonderful railings here. These were created by the artist David F. Wilson as part of large-scale environmental improvements along the Dens Road area that began in 1989. And these pieces were created, I think, around 1991. And this was a Dundee Public Art Programme commission funded by Dundee District Council. And there had been an old spinning mill nearby that was demolished, and so David wanted to try and incorporate elements of this idea of the looms turning, and so created this wonderful sort of concave and convex pattern on the railings to try and emphasise that sense of movement along the length of the railings. So they're really nicely designed. So Dens Road is really the border between the Hilltown and Stopswell, and I hope you'll forgive me if I just stray into Stopswell to show you a couple of pieces that we weren't able to show on our actual Stopswell tour. One of them is on this doorway here. In 2019, a new mural appeared on this door unofficially by the street artist That Cat. And then just round the corner here, we have two more of the wonderful open-close doors that were created around Stopswell in 2018. So this one here by Monte Nero. And then this large-scale one by Joanna Craig, which I believe is something of a challenge to paint on this corrugated surface, but it looks rather spectacular. Now we have a couple of nice little bronze pieces along the wall here that were done by the artist Doug Cocker. And these were created in 1991 as part of that same ongoing environmental improvement work that I mentioned earlier. But they're part of a much larger plan, which for some reason never came to fruition. So the idea was that there would be a whole series of these little bronze relief sculptures right the way up several blocks up Dens Road, depicting notable Dundee landmarks. And so these two show upper and lower Dens works. I'll cut to photos so you can see them more clearly. And there were also going to be, I think, at least another 8 of these of various other Dundee buildings. And for some reason, they ended up not going ahead with that plan. And so these two were the only ones that ended up getting installed. But Cocker had already created some of the other pieces, and three of them, plus a relief map, ended up getting installed in the city centre outside Boots, and they're now known as the Three Icons, and you can see them on one of my city centre tours. So a completely different end purpose, but they were all originally meant to be in little recesses along this wall, like these two. I'm just going to briefly retrace our steps and head up Cowan Street here. And just want to show you this little pyramid at the entrance of this housing estate here. This was created in 1999, just as a little artistic embellishment on the wall to act as a sort of gateway into this new housing development in Cowan Place. I don't know who the stone carver was, unfortunately, but it's just quite a nice little piece. And here we have another of the open-close doors, again from 2018. This one by Matthew Beeks. Okay, we're going to head up William Street. Right, so here we are at the Grey Lodge settlement, what originally began life as Dundee Social Union, and we have this rather lovely mural here, and there's also more around here as well. It's a wonderfully colourful building. So the murals were created in 2010 by various members of the clubs in the Grey Lodge, working with the artist Adam Milroy and Mark Lycan. And there's also a little ceramic piece just on the wall here, which was actually created much earlier in 2001 to 2. And again, various members of the Grey Lodge clubs ended up working on that. So this is St Mary's Forebank, one of the great architectural gems of the Hilltown, and as well as having these rather splendid gates, it does have a little statue of Mary and baby Jesus here. Now, the building was originally built by T.M. Capon in the 1900s, but then was adapted by Reginald Fairley in the 20s. So I'm not sure at what point this little sculpture went in, or indeed who did it, but it is an absolutely gorgeous building. And we have this lovely little so-called pocket park here, which is rather nice. And if this gentleman doesn't mind me zooming in past him, you'll see another of these nice little signs here that I showed you various examples of in the part 1 of this tour by David Oudney. And that would have been done 2006 or 7. Right, and so we're back onto Victoria Road. And so we're just heading back to Dundee Central Library where we started part 1. So a relatively quick one that, but hope you found that interesting and join me for another tour coming soon. Bye for now.